Alright, so this is a Zerg versus Terran I just played. I do a really standard opening build here where I get I build a couple workers, then my supply over here gets supply blocked. You see I'm at 14 out of 14, so I build another Overlord. Once the Overlord's done, I immediately make more drones. Then you see I've got 17 supply out of the possible 22. After that, I go take an expansion down here, what's called my natural. In Starcraft 2, your main base here will always have a ramp down to another expansion. Sometimes it can be in front of your base. Well, there's always one in front of your base. Sometimes there's also one behind your base that's like a safer expansion to take. Then I keep doing more really standard stuff. So I make a gas geyser and then a spawning pool. This lets me make it so when my spawning pool is done, I can immediately make the Zergling speed upgrade for my basic unit, the Zergling. It also times out that I have exactly enough money to also get 2 queens, which are good defensive units, that also have some special abilities that help me get more larvae, which are the little things down here you see turning into eggs that turn into more Zerg units. So I did send some overlords across the map. These guys provide supply. They're also a flying scout. They can upgrade in 2 different ways. When you have a evolution chamber, one of the Zerg buildings, you can make them into a unit that can drop other units, like a flying transport. And when you get the layer over here, make one of your hatcheries into a layer that's like the next tech level for Zerg, you can make them into overseers, which can detect hidden units. And they also cast a couple spells, but I rarely use the spells. So my opponent over here is doing some sort of Terran thing I haven't actually seen what he's doing yet. If we look at my point of view, this is what I know on the map. I can see the stuff around this Overlord, nothing, nothing, nothing. I blind make some Zerglings here because one of the most common things Terrans do is to make this unit called a Reaper. It comes and runs into your base and starts bothering your workers and possibly destroying them if you're not ready. So you just make a few Zerglings to counter that. The queens are typically out just around when the Reaper would get here too, so it's not that hard to defend if you are ready. Okay, so I get over here with this Overlord, and I see that my opponent has some Marines here. So I assume this is going to be a really standard build, the 16 Marine drop that I see all the time. It turns out that's not actually what my opponent is doing. I don't go check up on it. I really should, because he has got way more barracks than he should if he's doing the build I think he's doing. He should have 2 barracks, one of which has a reactor on it, which lets him make multiple units at a time, and one that has a tech lab on it. What he's got here is he's got 2 barracks with tech labs, and one that's just building a reactor now, which means his factory is later, which also means his starport is going to be later. So these are all things that are actually different than the build I'm thinking he's doing, by what I saw with my Overlord here. I did make some more queens. I made my Baneling nest, which lets you make your Zerglings, your basic guys, into little suicide units that are really good against the biological army he's going for, the Marines and well, not as much the Marauders, but the Marines, which is what I think he's going for, because that's all I've seen. So the queens over here, they have 2 different things they can do. They can inject larvae with this ability called spawn larvae. It makes it so that, look at me not doing it right, so that when the little things pop off the hatchery, you get more larvae and then you can build more units. Then they can also put down these ones, the creep tumors, that extend where the Zerg creep goes. And once these have sat there these also give you vision, and then they expand creep out from where they go. They don't give you vision until they finish, so you see right here that's building. And it costs 25 energy to do that. That's the purple number, the little purple bar under them. It costs 25 energy to do either of those things. They also have an ability transfuse, which can heal a friendly unit or structure. I think it's any biological unit or structure that is an ally of yours can be healed by that. Not 100% sure. Let's see what that actually says. Yeah. Target biological unit or structure. You're obviously only going to target your own thing. So I have some of my Zerglings and Banelings positioned over here because I think that my opponent is going for this drop play. It should arrive any second if he is. And this is one of the more vulnerable spots in my base, so I'm going to leave my ones there and some ones down here because these are the 2 places the drop might come in from. It turns out, though, my opponent's just massing up a whole bunch of units here and not actually moving out just yet. See, if I had actually gone back and rescouted and seen that, I should already have my third base being going down right now, either possibly here, possibly here. I think probably the bottom one is a more defensible location. Up here, it's too easy to have them like use their transports to drop here and then come back and drop here and like keep running my army around since none of them fly. And see, this is right next to each other by air, but by ground you have to go all the way down here and all the way out here and then all the way back up there to go between those two spaces. So I'm starting to go, okay, well, he's obviously not doing it. I'm going to tech up, so I make a layer. I make some evolution chambers, which lets you get attack and defense upgrades for your ground units, which is all I have right now. So I'm going to get the melee attack upgrade with this one. I'm going to get the melee armor upgrade with this one. I actually started those in the wrong order. In this matchup, you want to start the armor first because many of their units deal small amounts of damage. So every armor you have is making your units last longer. That's not as true against the Marauders here, but Marauders aren't even very good against Zerglings, and I have a lot of Zerglings. So my opponent does finally come over here and start bothering my third that I should have already had up about a minute and a half ago, maybe longer, and already had some army down here to help with this. You see my opponent also has a drop ship up here, but since I had an army here, he ended up not dropping, which was my army did its job because I positioned it right. Unfortunately, I don't pay enough attention when he goes around over here, so he's able to drop off some. So this base did finish up. Got some queens down here. They're a very good defensive unit. So I do end up sending some. I guess my opponent, yeah, he does pick them up. But I do send some units back up here to deal with this drop and keep it from doing too much damage. It's like he doesn't kill any of my important buildings or anything like that. He does come back in with the drop down here. I do grab the queens and target down his dropship, which is a medevac, so it also heals his units. But he ends up getting both my queens for this, and it takes me a while because I have forgotten to get the speed upgrade for these banelings, so I can't actually catch up with the bio even on creep right now. At some point I realized, oh wait, this guy's really low on health, I should just attack him with my drones. Yeah, there we go. You can see my opponent's expanded over here. This is fairly normal. You have a Zerg want to be up a base on your opponent if you can. I have a little bit too many workers here, but even though this number says more than the number it's supposed to be, you're actually good up to 24 drones. You can have up to 3 drones per mineral patch. You get slightly diminishing returns after 2 drones per mineral patch, but you are still getting more resources. Up here, I'm starting to run. I've actually run out of some mineral patches because you can see now it's out of 12, which means there's only, what, 6 of the mineral patches left that started here. So I start up some static defense here. This is actually on the wrong side of the base now that I think about it. It should be out here because I picked off a lot of his flying dropships, so he's not going to be able to come around this way. I need to have it over here in the choke where he has to fight through it. So my opponent's just coming on the map. If we look at our upgrades, so my opponent's got Stimpak, which lets all his biological units here, the Marines and the Marauders, use an ability Stimpak where they take some damage to get increased movement attack speed for a while. He's got Combat Shield, which makes his Marines have more hit points. And he's got Concussive Shells. His Marauders, the bigger guys there, slow their opponents when they hit them. I've got only Zergling speed, but then I also have the attack and defense upgrades, so I deal more damage and can take more damage before dying. See, because my defense wasn't in the right place here, now I went and lost my hatchery, my main building here. That's really bad as Zerg because all your production happens out of your hatcheries. So I already have thought about that this could be a possibility and started another, what's called a macro hatchery up here. It's not intended that you return any resources to it, use it just to get more larvae so you can build more units, which I desperately need because I have got all the resources in the world but no way to spend them because I don't have any larvae to turn into units. So my opponent just chills here. I think he actually could have killed me here if he just came and attacked. I think he does come attack, he just does it poorly. If he split up his units better, I think he could have actually won this engagement. So I'm trying to not engage because I got shot by that siege tank. I did make a couple Hydralisks. I had that building really poorly placed out my third base and lost it, so I can't actually make more of these guys right now. They're anti-air, anti-ground, so they do both. They're really glass cannon, though. They deal a ton of damage really fast. They don't have very many hit points. So I did make a Spire, which lets me make Mutalisks, because I noticed that my opponent had mostly an anti-ground army force and not a lot of anti-air. So these have chased a lot of his army away for the time being. I decided to get out on the map and check out where things are going. I should really be going here and here to the watchtowers, because if you have a unit one of these, it grants you like a circular field of vision for quite a ways around it. He did end up leaving his siege tanks over here at this base, which I believe if he uses a scan and gets vision here, he can shoot a base if I try to take it here. But see, he's just remassed a bunch of units again. Got some siege tanks, more siege tanks with his army than they did previously. It's okay, my Zerglings are very good against siege tanks, because when you get right on top of a siege tank, it can't actually hit you anymore, because you gotta have at least a certain range before it will be able to fire if it's in siege mode, which is where they're best. So you see he doesn't even put his tanks in siege mode, he just leaves them firing, which also isn't even that good here. I don't have enough stuff, though. I really shouldn't have engaged that. I should have just stood back here on the creep. Would have been better. But I do come in with a flank from the other side with all the stuff I had across the map, so I catch him from behind where his reinforcements will be coming from. I have noticed that my opponent has 4 bases here. And that's bad as Zerg, because generally your units are all cheap and disposable, so the way you get ahead is that you make a whole bunch of cheap expendable units and you just keep reinforcing them. I did spend most of my money. I still have a lot of gas, but I was able to spend most of it. So my opponent's over here trying to kill it. I said, okay, great. I'll send more Zerglings that I've been rallying over here. I should really rally them out maybe toward the third. Bring back my Mutalisks. These guys attack both air and ground. They're pretty squishy, but if your opponent doesn't have anti-air, they're going to be pretty good. So he's starting to build some missile turrets to combat the Mutalisks. I don't know this yet. I just know he has a base over here. Oh, I guess I do know it because of my Overlord, but I wasn't actually paying attention there. I didn't know that in the game. I see it now. So maybe you'll target down one, target down another of the missile turrets, but then I think at some point I send my Zerglings to target the turrets. Right, there we go. So they will stop doing that. He's got some other units here. We just kind of trade, and no one's left with a whole lot of anything after this is all over. Let's see. So you can see what we're producing at any given time with this tab and the replay. So I do end up taking out my opponent's base here. He's still got this base, and that's actually kind of problematic for me because I only have this base that's really got a lot of resources left. This one's really running low on them, but that's going to be the case for his one over here too. But the problem is that really means that we're on even bases, basically. You really want to be ahead. But I do have a serious upgrade lead here. I have now got +2 attack and +2 armor, and I've got +1 armor for my flying guys, because again, I saw that a lot of his army deals small amounts of damage, so every armor you have reduces the damage by another one, makes their army even worse at what they're doing. He does not have any upgrades yet for his attack or defense values, so they're all just the base values. You can see my opponent's producing a bunch of stuff. I'm making just a whole bunch of Zerglings, because at this point I'm thinking, oh, I can just keep sending Zerglings across the map and that'll probably clean most of this up. I did end up remaking my Hydralisk then, so I have a few Hydralisks now. When you're in small numbers like this, these guys are just very good since they're so... they They deal so much damage. They're kind of a weird unit. They're good in like smallish numbers and they're good in really large numbers, but in like medium numbers, they're hard to use. So fortunately, my opponent doesn't have any splash damage I've had to worry about. Like the biggest problem with Zerglings against Terran is they can just have a mine, and then if your Zergling is run by a mine, bam, 40 dead Zerglings if you're not paying close attention. But I have not seen that from my opponent yet, so I haven't really been worrying about it. I do try to take a base out here just because I think it's one of the more defensible locations that is available to me now, although there are a lot of attack angles to that base. You know, from over here, if they knock down the rocks, these are destructible rocks, so they can do that from this angle, from this angle, up this ramp. If they have dropships, they can go up here. But I've been keeping his numbers of stuff low, so I feel like if I just rally my army here, it's going to be okay. My opponent just, I think he was going to say GG there and left. I don't know what E is about. Normally you say GG, good game, and then concede if you're behind. And he does that because he's looking at the fact that I have these 11 Hydralisks and a few Zerglings. He's got like one of a couple different units, two of a couple different units. But I still have 47 workers, and I'm taking more bases, and he's got 8 workers. So I'm just so far ahead, he knows, you know, he can't win. Now, Terrans can lift up their buildings and fly them around the edge of the map if they really want to prolong the game, but that's only going to prolong the game. It's not actually going to cause them to win. It's just going to waste all of our time, and he knows that. So I think that's it for this game.